Welcome back. So in the previous lecture, I haven't talked about init and self. So in this lecture, let us talk about them. So firstly, whenever we use a class keyword, it means we are declaring this particular class. So this is why we use a specific keyword. So that means I'm using class. It is giving an indication to my interpreter that okay, I am declaring this particular class. If I'm using def, that means I'm declaring a function or a method. Now let us talk about init function, that is our init method. So what it is? So this method is useful to initialize the variables. The method name has 2 underscore before and after. This indicates that this method is internally defined and we cannot call this method. That means this method is only defined for this particular class, and like we were calling this stock method, we cannot call init method. It will be initialized automatically. So whenever we are going to create an instance that is an object, here I have created an object that is S1 and I have called my class, that is my student class. So whenever I call my class, it will automatically initialize, it will automatically call this particular method, which is init. So remember, init method will automatically call itself whenever you are going to call a class. So while creating our object too, same process happens. So instead of this, I can also write a print statement. And if I remove these print statement, here you can see I just created these 2 objects and there is nothing to print. But remember, here I am creating an instance. That means here I am creating an object. So this method will automatically be called, and once this method is called, this is going to print. Here I am creating another object, this method will be called and this is going to print. If I run this one, you can see the statement is printed 2 times. That means we have created 2 objects, 2 times this init method is called. So this is an automatic method and all the variables are kept inside that. So let me remove this print statement, and if I run this one again, you can see I haven't got anything. Now I hope you understand about init. The second secret is self. So what is this self? So if we observe the parameter self written after our method name in the parenthesis, so self is a variable that refers to current class instance. So whenever we create an instance, that is we are creating an object for the student class, a separate memory block is allocated on the heap, and that memory location is by default stored in this self. So if I'm creating S1, that means it will call initialize method. So this initialize method will take self. So now at this point of time, this self referred to S1. If I create S2 and I call this initialize class, so this self will now refer to S2. So that means this self keyword is used for that particular instance. That means for that particular object. That is the reason, if you remember in our previous example, we use s1.name as Sharda. So that means for this particular instance, our self.name was modified. And for this particular second instance, that is our second object, that was remained same. So this self keyword contained the memory of that instance. Same follows with this particular method. So once I rename this s1 name to Sharda, now if I'm going to call this particular method for S1, it is going to print my new name instead of that old Shubham name. So that's how you follow with the help of self. Don't worry, we are going to talk about a lot of example with this. The second thing I want to talk about is whenever we call this particular method, like if I call s1.talk, so whenever we call this particular method, it is known as instance method. So in simple terms, what is happening is we created a class and now we can create different objects. First of all, a block of memory is allocated on the heap. That means once we start creating object, so there is a memory allocated to that particular object. So how much memory is allocated is decided according to the attributes and the methods that are available in our student class. The second thing is, after allocating the memory block, the special method by the name init, so this method is called internally, and this method stores the initial data into the variable. Since this method is useful to construct the instance, it is called as constructor. So as you know, in this particular line, I was actually calling a constructor. and this is my constructor now. So constructor are basically methods. So whenever we call any class, these constructor are called themselves. So here if I call this particular class student, so this is my initial method, that is my init method, which is called automatically. Whereas my talk method has different behavior. So constructor are something, once we start initializing things, they are called by themselves. The third and the final thing is the allocated memory location address of the instance is returned into S1 variable. So to see the memory location or in decimal format, we can use ID and then S1. So I hope by now you understand this, that these two objects have different location. If I print their memory location here and if I run this one, you can see they both have different address. That means they are different object, they have their own address. And if I change something on S1, it would be stored in S1 address. And if I change something on S2, it would be saved in S2 address. So now you are familiar with memory addresses. So let me clear a few things. So what self-contain is memory address itself. So here I created an object S1 and it called student. So it created a new memory location and then it called the student class, and then init method is a constructor, so it will be called automatically. So here self will contain the address of S1. Same follows with S2. When we create an instance S2, we call the class student, and here with our constructor, self is containing the address of S2. That is why while creating S1, all these values are saved in S1 memory block. The next time we created S2, all these values are saved in S2 memory block. So they are totally different. Here self refers to our instance. That means the current memory location. So if I am calling S1.name, self will be S1 location.name, and for this one S2 location.name. So that's how self is used. Remember one more thing. Here we are passing self as a parameter. So here self is hidden. There is some parameters also inside this particular student thing. So this is actually hidden, which is self only. That is the reason student is passing the memory location of S1. And here with the help of self, which is hidden, it is passing internally the memory location of S2 instance. And for a while, if I talk about constructor, so a constructor is a special method that is used to initialize the instance variable of a class. So in the constructor, we create the instance variable and initialize them with some starting value. So these values can be changed at later point of time according to our instance. So I gave here default value as, so I gave initialize value as name to Shubham and 22 as age and 95 as marks. We can change for every student, means S2 student can have different name, S3 student can have different name. This is just the structure that every student will follow, that is name, age and marks. Here the constructor has only one parameter, that is self. Using self.name and self.age, self.marks, we can access the instance variable of that particular class. A constructor is called at the time of creating an instance. So whenever we are going to create a new object, that means new instance, we are going to call constructor. And don't worry, we will be passing more parameters in the next lecture. So my motive with this lecture was to make you understand about init, about constructor and about self. So I hope now you understand about initializing class and why we are using init, why we are using self, all these things. In the next lecture, let us take a question, pass some more variables, pass some more parameters as well as argument. So see you in the next lecture with some questions and clearing up some doubts. And don't forget that class and methods are something really important and they are too confusing. Don't worry, if you are not able to understand till now, hold up, we are going to solve some examples, and after examples I am sure that you will be clear up with the things. So see you in the next lecture.